This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
They're hypervigilant about taking care of their kid. And so we know what that's like for our nervous systems to kind of live in that high state of arousal. So looking at where are you as a parent? So one of the hardest things we do as parents, we know this, is to watch your child suffer and know there's really nothing you can do about it. Or what you can do about it doesn't feel adequate enough because you can't stop it. So to walk the journey with them and to be there with empathy and openness and that grounded kind of regulation piece yourself. We know number one is we don't want our parental distress to amplify our child's distress.
Welcome to the Parent Footprint Podcast with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan, your host. And let me tell you a little bit about Parent Footprint. At Parent Footprint, we believe the key to raising happy, healthy, and engaged kids is for us parents to seek the same in our own lives: happiness, health, and engagement. Additionally, we believe that awareness is the foundation of your vision of successful parenting. And with increased awareness and intention, we can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint on our children. Today's show, we are talking about teens living with chronic disease, a very important topic. I am excited to introduce you to our guest and expert, Christine Triano. Christine is a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in the treatment of adolescents, adults, families, and creative professionals. Her strength-based approach ensures that counseling addresses not just what's going wrong, but identifies and nurtures what is going right, which I love. Christine is the Director of Mental Health at the Center for Connection, which is a multidisciplinary practice in Pasadena, California, where she helps lead the center's vibrant multidisciplinary team as they work to support one another, collaborate together, and continue to learn and grow as clinicians. And I can tell everyone this is an amazing organization with amazing people and professionals. Christine holds a master's in social work from Cal State LA and a bachelor's of art cum laude in political science from Tufts. She's a proud native New Yorker and has enjoyed many years as a writer, media consultant, and documentary film and television producer before earning her MSW. She continues to pursue her passion for storytelling through documentary projects, highlighting the importance of connection and community. And as a writer and co-producer of Lost Angels, Skid Row is My Home, she received the Voice Award from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, known as SAMHSA, for educating the public about the experiences of people in recovery from mental health illness. And more recently, she wrote and co-produced the 2016 documentary feature, Los Punks, We Are All We Have, chronicling the vibrant DIY punk rock scene in East and South Los Angeles. Christine is clearly a very vibrant and creative person who is reaching across realms. Christine, I'm excited to talk to you today.
Hi, Dan. I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for that lovely intro. It's just a pleasure, and big fan of your show, and love the message of building that awareness as parents. I have 2 teenage boys myself, and it's so much a part of my work that I do with families too.
Well, thank you. And for everyone, there was so much more for me to tell you about Christine, and she has so much to say that I needed to cut that actually short. But again, the whole idea about your center and multidisciplinary and collaborative in nature, and that also seems to be the way you live your life as well, through and through.
Yeah, well, the center came about. I had been in the professional study group of Tina Payne Bryson, who's been a guest on your show and the co-author of several books, including The Whole Brain Child, amazing parenting books. And I had started my own private practice, and I was so lonely. I thought it was like what my goal was. And I got my office and I decorated it. And then I sat there and thought, I just hate this. And that's when Tina put out a call saying, I'm going to start a practice to to actually walk the talk that we're all studying here about connected relationships and connected brains. And I was like, sign me up, I'm in. So that was a little over 4 years ago. And we've grown, and, it's the place I wish existed when my son was young.
Absolutely. And I'm with you. I share this. I have had a similar path as a professional, and the need to connect and collaborate. And just walking into your guys' center, you feel like you're at home, right? So it's just, you've really created home in a strength-based way for people to heal and grow.
Yeah. There's so much isolation as a parent. And there's some of what I think we'll talk about today is that as a caregiver or a parent of a child who's struggling, whether it's emotional, mental health, the collateral effects of a physical illness, there's a lot of loneliness and feeling like I have to be the general contractor and the CEO of figuring out this project and running all over town looking for the right resources. And this is an attempt to go, we've got you. You have a team, and we're going to help you manage this and walk that, walk the journey with you and the whole family.
And as we know, as clinicians and as people and parents, there's so many different ways that life can throw us challenges and curveballs. And among those is chronic disease. And we're going to be talking about your experiences in treating and helping folks with chronic disease. And we both want to note that it is National Eczema Awareness Month. And with a focus on that particular issue, there is an initiative that I'd like you to describe to us known as AD. And you can tell us what that is and the impact that it has on some of your clients.
Sure. So, I kind of want to, I'm going to start a little bit wider and go, I'm a bit of an outlier in that I love teenagers. And if you sit in a room full of adults or especially therapists and they say, oh, you work with teenagers, you kind of get like people visibly step back. But, I love this age and stage. I think it's an amazing time of growth and discovery and possibility. I have, 16 and almost 19-year-old, and my house is like that house, where all the friends are here and they eat all our snacks, and it kind of smells like dirty gym socks when they clear. But I love having them around. But, at the same time, there's no way I'd voluntarily go back to my teenage years. And when I find if you pull any given room full of adults and you say, would you relive your teen years if you had the chance, you will rarely find any hands shooting up. And we know, like, why is that? It's a painful age and stage too. So it can be really incredibly challenging. So, the social relationships become really important. Identity is being explored and formed. And there's, it's really common, and there's a lot of neurobiological reasons for this, to feel really self-conscious. So this gets us to what's called atopic dermatitis, otherwise known as eczema. We're kind of talking about moderate to severe eczema. So this is a chronic skin disease. It emerges usually in early life before the age of 2, and there is no cure. And we know it affects about 400,000 teenagers in the U.S., and that there's just these kind of myriad effects of living with a chronic disease. So going through this stage of the teenage years with an unpredictable chronic condition that flares up and is visible to everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
So looking different, that like, if you think about being a teenager, what's the thing you want to do the least is kind of stand out in a way that can be perceived as negative.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the initiative is about for, National Eczema Awareness Month, is to understand AD and to create, something of a roadmap of how to help families and teenagers with this condition figure out how to, live and thrive despite the disease.
And this shares similarities, I'm guessing, with the same principles for some of the other chronic diseases that you work with.
So there's certain things that are similar and, of course, some that are different.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think about the teens I've worked with who have had rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, maybe Crohn's, maybe IBS, these kind of chronic conditions that flare and are kind of misunderstood too.
Mm-hmm.
What it's like to live with that. What's the level of pain or discomfort or, embarrassment, sleepless nights, a big thing. With many of these conditions with eczema, the itching leads to sleepless nights. And, because it's a deep, deep itching that can't be scratched really, to satisfaction. So if we think about our kids and kind of our, developmental needs and where we start, at the center when we're talking to a family, one of the first questions at any age of the kid is how do they sleep, and how long, and what's the quality of that sleep? Because we know mental and emotional wellness is built on a foundation of good sleep. So,
and this is, I'm glad everyone is finally talking about the importance of sleep instead of skipping over that and going straight to all of the other questions that we have always asked over the years, right? It's like, it's foundational to functioning.
Yeah. And, and I think we're finally awakening to that as adults too, that it's not really a badge of status to go like, I'm so busy and I get 5 hours of sleep a night. Right. And, that's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. How can we talk about that and prioritize that? So that, that's one thing you see kids missing out on. And the other is just missing out on a lot of the moments or activities that are supposed to be part of that ideal adolescent experience. So what are the extracurriculars or the sports or the birthday parties or the trips to the beach? Where there's so many, a birthday party in the park. So a child that has IBS or Crohn's is like, well, where's the bathroom? What's that going to look like? Am I going to feel secure in that setting? A kid with eczema, it's hot and it's sunny and there's bugs and there's allergens and all of those can be triggers for a flare-up. So
I'm starting to itch.
Something as basic as that.
Just listening to you, and I'm thinking about a client that I just saw actually last week on home not planned from freshman year for a whole bunch of medical appointments because of a complete flare of his eczema. Freshman year, first month in the dorms, making new friends in the clubs, and his just whole face and body is just lit up, right, with agitation. Wow. And it's just timely, and just to have the empathy for the kids that are living in their bodies that are behaving in ways that make things really hard.
Yeah, I feel, that's exactly, so that's kind of the client that I might see too, is the young adult who has to take that leave from college for whatever reason. So, right. So it sounds like he was doing well and he got there, and socially and emotionally and maybe academically, he was kind of hitting his marks, but something in that environment triggered him. And even the stress of the change, because even a desired change is stressful. It can be a healthy dose of stress, but it's still a form of stress. So I'm really sorry to hear that. And so there's misunderstanding about that too, because there's not a widespread realization about how severe eczema can be. Teens with eczema miss, they miss so many weeks of school in a year on average. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks of school. And more than that, we have nearly half, 45 to 50-ish% self-reporting, which, we know that's likely underreported, that they've been bullied because of their AD, that they can't keep up with their homework because of it, that they feel depressed when they have a flare-up, that they're worried about being seen in public when they have a flare. So those are really high numbers.
So you talk about sleep as being essential. What are the other areas that when you are working with a family, what go down the list of the other essentials that you are honing in on?
Sure. So, at the centerpiece of the Understand AD campaign is a family, a 17-year-old young man, Isaiah, and his parents, Lori and Reggie, and getting to work with them for this campaign. I kind of focused in on what I would do with almost any family in looking at, what are the pieces that's going to help you parent effectively through the developmental, just the normal challenges of teenage years, and the chronic disease piece, and what's going to help Isaiah. We know this age he needs to start, like any teen, to differentiate and individuate, and while maintaining that healthy, open linkage to the family he's coming from. So with families, one of the first steps I take after we're talking about these pieces, like we're looking at sleep, is I'm also starting about let's just slow down. Let's just slow everything down and check in with where we are right now. That peace, that awareness that you talk about, because so many of the families, by the time they get to me, they have been carrying that backpack full of heavy rocks up the hill for years. They have just been running like that ultra marathon because they're hyper vigilant, about taking care of their kid. And so we know what that's like for our nervous systems to kind of live in that high state of arousal. So looking at, where are you as a parent? So one of the hardest things we do as parents, we know this, is to watch your child suffer and know there's really nothing you can do about it. Or what you can do about it doesn't feel adequate enough because you can't stop it. So, to walk the journey with them and to be there with empathy and openness and that grounded kind of regulation piece yourself. We know that, number one is we don't want our parental distress to amplify our child's distress.
Yes. Please say that again. This is so aligned with what we are aligned on and Parent Footprint. So please say that again.
Okay. So what we're looking for is to not have our parental distress amplify our child's distress.
Exactly. And that's hard in these situations.
Yeah. So I will say this when I'm working with parents. I'll say, I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to feel physiologically, neurobiologically, emotionally impossible, and which is not to chase your child up the tree, but to stay there, feet on the ground, going, I'm here, I've got you. So hard.
So hard. But holding that, in a sense, it's hard. it's sort of this, for lack of a better concept, like a metaphysical holding energetically. If we can hold this sort of calm space in the face of the stress and the distress, right? Like how to just be there in this calm, open place, despite all of the real challenges in the situation.
Yes, I love that description, like a calm metaphysical space, because there is that aspect to it. It's, and there's a lot of different practices to help us get there. And a lot of, there's a lot of mindfulness, and there's self-compassion, and there's, kind of meditation. There's all these ways, just using our breath as a neurobiological regulator, kind of learning how to do that. But just having, I'll talk about bubble wrap, kind of like getting your bubble wrap on is this idea of just having a little bit of space between yourself and the big feeling. So, it's protective, but you can kind of see through it. This kind of works with teenagers, but whatever kind of visual might work for you, so that you can be in there and able to do your job, which is to give that empathy to your kid, to kind of provide the safe container when they're going through the hard thing.
And this dilemma, as you hit on, with the appropriate developmental stages and phases of individuation and separation, and yet needing extra care that a teen without chronic illness would not need at this phase in life.
Yes. So that part gets kind of confusing, because, a lot of, with a child who doesn't have a chronic illness, I may be talking to the teenager and to their family about, like, okay, where are we going to step back and help scaffold them up to taking more responsibility for their own care? I kind of have, even a list of things like, because on the other end of this, I work with young adults who come home from college because they really weren't prepared. They need to take that leave because maybe they had a 4.5 GPA and they were super high achievers and they got into the school of their dreams, but they never had to do a load of laundry or kind of make a doctor's appointment, or they don't know when they're sick and when to go to the doctor's appointment. Like, how sick means go to the infirmary or the nurse. Some really kind of wider aspects of self-care, or, how to find the support you need if you are struggling emotionally. So kind of looking at what are the things we're going to give you responsibility for, and what are the tolerable experiments. Having some experience of failure before you launch. It's really important to build resilience. So the super achiever who never fails and gets to college and then gets a C on a quiz, that might really trigger a huge stress response because it feels catastrophic. So add in chronic illness, there's a little more risk there. What are the tolerable experiments might change because, if I have a parent of a child with eczema, like we're working with Isaiah and his parents, mom and dad are like, if he does not putting on that lotion several times a day to keep his skin with that protective barrier, that can lead to the dryness and the cracking. And then that makes him vulnerable to infection. And what happens when there's infection? Well, he's in the hospital and then he gets a secondary MRSA virus. And that has been the case several times in his life. So trusting that child with the chronic illness to start to take over some aspects of their care, while kind of overseeing it, is a delicate balance. But, teenagers don't want to be told 10 times a day to do anything.
No.
Even if it's actually a matter of their health and well-being. So that's kind of a careful negotiation. And so what I always encourage is this needs to be a collaborative discussion. So at the center, we'll talk about, and in Tina and Dan's work, command and demand parenting versus, kind of a more collaborative approach. So we don't want to command and demand. You have to take care of yourself these certain ways. With kids with the gastrointestinal illnesses, a lot of it comes up around food and diet. you have to eat differently, but I just want to eat pizza. I'm 15, So figuring out what can you get buy-in for? What will they take over? And really making a big fuss about recognizing the effort to start to take over care and practice those skills.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
I want to highlight a few things that you've said there, which are so important. Stepping back, that tolerating tolerable experiments to create resilience. And I love that. Like, what's tolerable, knowing we need to build that muscle. It doesn't just come. And some kids, as you say, teens, go away to college with more experiences of resilience than others. When we have a chronic illness, it's added levels of complexity and self-care needed, whereas someone can just have a lot of pizza and Pepsi and be fine, and someone else with a certain sort of chronic GI challenge cannot, and that's tough, right? They just want to be regular. They just want to be normal. And then this idea of, let's collaborate on your health, what the doctors say you need, and how can you do this, and how can we support you in a way that is comfortable for you?
Yes, absolutely. That idea, like they just want to be normal, right? They just want to fit in. So bringing your kid, going into those doctor's appointment, you're still going in with them, of course, until very possibly beyond 18 if there's a chronic illness, but making sure you're checking in beforehand. What do you want to talk to the doctor about today? Don't charge in and take over, or try not to talk for your kid, but let them start to advocate, ask their questions, formulate the idea that this is something they can start to take some agency over. There's, by the time, a child, especially eczema, so I'm going to go back to the example of Isaiah, who's diagnosed when he was in preschool. That's kind of like, we know what that's like. We can probably recall when you were a child, you're just kind of like put in the car and dragged around, and you got to be here and you got to go there. And there's kind of almost a, kind of just, you go with the flow, because the adults are in charge. So starting to shift that. You're at the table now. What's your experience? What are your concerns? What are your questions? And they might be really different than what your concerns are as a parent.
As you're talking about this, and I'm thinking about the levels of complexity, if you could, I know this is an if, but if you could distill what you think are the few essential ideas for parents of teens with chronic health challenges, what would you say would be the balls for them to focus on? The guiding sort of principles and just ideas that they can keep in their head as they're dealing with what we call the trees, the weeds of the day-to-day.
Yeah. So one is, I would say that it's that slowing down, it's that checking in and doing that inner work to be present for the small moments. And that kind of connects to, where is the shared joy? Where are the moments where there's family connection, where the disease isn't part of the discussion, or even in the side view, where we can just connect as a family and maybe insert some gratitude practice into what those things are. We know the research is there that really supports practicing gratitude as, building resilience and hope. So putting that in there, not making it the headline on everything. One of the things is a lot of families have, there's multiple siblings. So there's not just one child with a chronic illness, there's another one too. So trying to zoom out and have that bigger picture and trust that there's still a lot of good.
Right. A lot of good outside of the very real disease.
Yes. That it's part of the story, but not the whole story. So the second is to look at what are the priorities day to day and take some time to kind of plan out what the week is. So the basics of sleep and good food and social connection and reflective downtime and playtime. So important. Figure out how to do that. And it might be a little more complicated again if there's chronic disease. So thinking of kind of that playtime and the connected family time. A family like Isaiah's, because of his flares growing up, even though he loved the beach in the summer was too fraught with risk for flare. But the beach in the fall, when you might be bundled up, but you're still getting out and looking at the water and having some time on the beach, that was doable. So what can we make work and still find connected time and connected playtime and shared joy? And the third one is really doing that piece where you start to engage your teenager in being part of their care management and part of the decisions and holding back the reactivity when they say, I live in California, and they say, I want to go to school on the East Coast. Instead of jumping out of your skin immediately going, you can't go that far away. Your doctors are here. And what if you get sick? Just kind of holding it and with openness and curiosity and not a rush to reactivity and going, well, that sounds cool. Tell me about that.
Yes, openness. And always being in these situations with college as well, it's realizing there's so many things that have to happen to end up with an acceptance and an actual, yes, I'm going there, that it's so important to let our kids go on this personal journey without us putting up an immediate stop sign, like engage in the process of inquiry.
Yes. Openness and curiosity, because they say it. And we know teenagers say a lot of things that don't actually ever happen because they're supposed to, because they have big ideas and they're not afraid to be idealistic and unrealistic. And that's what's awesome about them.
Yes. Okay, Christine, it is time for the parent footprint moment question. It always comes up too fast. So tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual or parent, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your child.
I'm so excited to get a parent footprint moment. So thinking about this, I had to go to kind of a teenage parenting teenager moment. So when I was in high school, when I was a teenager, I got good grades. That was relatively easy for me. I derived a lot of my self-worth from being academically successful. And I fast forward, and I have these two boys, and when my eldest, he'll be 19 next month, but when he was in high school, we were really struggling a lot. He's a brilliant kid, but he's not a great student. And, through various learning differences. So through his IEP, he had this wonderful learning specialist all through high school, Mr. Ross, who was my good buddy and frequent texting friend, because together we were, part of the team trying to help my son get through school. And he described Owen's, I said, one day we're in an IEP meeting, he said, it must be kind of like having a Ferrari stuck in second gear to have that brain. And that made this big impression on me. But, I still really wanted him to show what he knows. So the day of the PSAT, this is on my mind because my younger son's taking the PSAT today. So it came up last night and I was trying to think of this. It's an important test. It's only given once. You send them off with a healthy breakfast, and I'm at work and I'm wondering how it's going. And I get a photo texted from Mr. Ross of my son sleeping on his desk while all the other kids are taking the test. All right. So
deep breath.
Yeah. In the parlance of kind of a whole brain child, I flipped my lid.
Yep.
It went flying off into the stratosphere. But, luckily I had some time. That was earlier in the day. And by the time the evening came around, I had kind of done my little check-in piece and got myself calm, and we got to talk about it. And what my son shared, with a lot of apology, but still feeling like he'd done the right thing, is that the night before he stayed up late talking with a friend who was going through a hard time. And I knew what was going on with that friend. And he felt like that was really important for him. And, while that PSAT was really important to me, it wasn't as important to my son as being there for a friend in need. And that really hit me, because what I realized is that, I got good grades as a teen, but I also used that as a shield to kind of cover up a lot of the stuff I was doing that was, not like this more typical, not great teen behaviors. And I used it, I could kind of hide behind it, and I lied a lot, and I ran around and did things I shouldn't. And I was looking at my kid and I'm thinking, like, this is the most honest, like, loyal, kind person. He does not lie to me. And that's hard sometimes because I have to deal with what he's telling me that's true. And it just hit me like, he's not me, and maybe that's a good thing. I came across
Thank you for that. And right now, I'm sure your other son is alert, awake, and just is killing it.
Yeah, I don't know if my lid could handle 2 flips of that.
But that's such an important story about your experience and your orientation and your very realistic belief about what's important. And yet, often our kids are actually teaching us what is more important in that moment.
So very true.
Christine, our time has come to an end here. But there is so much more from people to learn from you and the center. So please tell people where they can follow the work you're all doing, the projects, and of course the campaign that is going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the campaign, there's a video series at understandad.com. Understandad.com has, it features a squad. That's me, myself, a dermatologist, and a peer partner working with the young man I've talked about, Isaiah, and his family. And then at the Center for Connection.org, can learn more about our practice, see our amazing team, find some great resources there as well.
Awesome. And I want to summarize again some of the gems that you shared with us today. The first is for us parents who are dealing with teens with chronic disease to manage our own parental distress so we don't increase our child's stress. For us to help create tolerable experiments to build resilience. When it comes to our child's care management, collaborate with them so they are a part of the process and can be empowered. And then these last critical pieces for us to slow down, stay present in the moments, and focus on joy and connection. Thank you so much for all of your words.
Thank you, Dan. It's been a great pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Everyone, let's continue to do what Parent Footprint seeks to do, as well as Christine center, and that is for us to be the people we want our teens and children to become. Lead by example, focus on our own health, which will have incredible health effects for our kids. Check us out at www.parentfootprint.com. You will find our Parent Footprint Awareness training, which is designed to do all of what we talked about. And always think about this guiding question: what footprint do you want to leave?